says Sweet Trip.
Sweet Trip.
It is a album cover from one of my
Oh.
favorite bands, Sweet Trip.
Which band?
Sweet Trip.
Okay, what's the album name?
You will never know why.
You will never know why.
Yeah, it's
if
like
you had
a
said Sweet Trip, I might have thrown something at you.
no, Sweet Trip, Sweet Trip. No, it's just like it's an album I found in like
Mhm.
that's gonna be fun. Anyway, it's an album I found in like early 2020, right before the
Right.
pandemic hit. Like I was in like I don't even know. I was scrolling through my Spotify on like in Spanish class.
In Spanish class.
And
Why
I
did you
found-
take Spanish?
Huh?
Why did you take Spanish?
I needed the credits for UW.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? Yeah. So I was taking Spanish. I found it and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I just listened to it and then I was like,
Mhm.
eventually
Nice.
leaped down a rabbit hole full of like other various music stuff. So
Yeah. Well, you would know a lot about music. And on that note, good after morning. Welcome to On the Dome, a podcast about how non-expert college-age youth think. Today, we have a very special guest, and you know how special my guest is because I only have one guest. Never before.
never before.
So who are you?
I am Alex. I am from Seattle, Washington. I go to the University of Washington, and I am a producer, a music producer, and I go by defsharp.
You go by defsharp.
Mhm.
Why do you go by defsharp?
That's a fun question.
Mhm.
So when I was in choir in like elementary school,
Right.
We had went to like this camp thing,
Mhm.
and while we were at the camp, we were learning about like scales and like various things related to music. And I don't know, at complete random, we were going through like the D major scale,
Mhm.
and the first three notes of the D major scale are D, E, and then F sharp.
Oh.
And so in my like 10 or 11-year-old head, I was like, yo, Def Sharp? That's sick. That's awesome. And I wrote it down, and I just kind of kept it. I never
Yeah.
really bothered like changing it because it just like, it worked for me. So
Right.
Def Sharp it was, and it just
Mhm.
kind of stayed.
Yeah.
Been a lot of thinking about either changing it or retiring it. I don't know. But for now, Def Sharp.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because not many people choose their artist name when they're 10 or 11, but you started your like music career when you were like, how old were you? Around that age,
Around
right?
that age, I think I like started putting out like little songs on like SoundCloud or YouTube in like 2014. So I was
Mhm.
like 13, 14, something like 13, 12, I don't know.
Which was
One
probably around the time we met.
Yeah, around that. Like either like maybe a couple years before that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm.
So we met, I remember we met in choir.
Mhm.
We were in the same choir for a long time. And you were the person when we were singing in churches that would go walk down first. And you had the solo
Yes.
in Once in Royal David City. And I remember my mom and your mom were both volunteering for
Mhm.
one of the concerts. And my mom comes up to me afterwards and he's like, oh, the boy who does the solo, he puts out music. His mom showed me. And we were like listening to it in the car on the way back. And I had no idea who you were.
Mhm.
But now I know who you are.
Now you know.
Now I know.
And another fun fact is that album is completely gone.
You
I just erased it.
Stripped it from the internet.
I stripped it from the internet.
It was
It's
on like what,
completely gone.
Apple Music or iTunes?
Apple Music, Spotify, just all like the general like streaming platforms. And like, I don't know, when you're 19 and you're looking back at stuff that you made when you were 13, it's like, if it's still associated with me, I'd just
Right.
rather
I
not.
wonder if that'll happen with this podcast. Like when I'm, 6
Maybe.
years from now. So when I'm 25, am I just going to be wanting to wipe this from the internet? Well, hopefully not. So
Hopefully not. I feel like this is good content, you know?
great content.
Good stuff to look back
Subscribe.
on.
Yeah. So yeah, you started making music very young.
Mhm.
Other than coming up with the coolest name ever in choir, why? Why did you start making music?
So, believe it or not, it was, it actually started when I downloaded iMovie
Mhm.
on my iPad in like 3rd grade. I was like, I was really excited because like Apple had a lot of like applications to like for a lot of like content creation, and there's iMovie, like GarageBand, all like the the general like document programs, like slide programs, whatever. And I downloaded iMovie and GarageBand at the same time, and I was like, oh, this is fun. Maybe I can try to tap into some creative potential, as a 3rd grader. And I started making little movies, and at the same time, I'd like try to make like little soundtracks for those skits or whatever that I'd post on YouTube. And just over the years, it just sort of started to become clear that I enjoyed the music aspect a little bit more than I enjoyed the film aspect, and started doing more with it. And then push comes to shove, I end up getting like a different program to use other than GarageBand on my iPad, which is funny because like it took me a long time to start using it because I use Ableton Live right now, and
fancy.
It's a scary program.
When you go from
when you go from an iPad program to Ableton Live, it's a bit of a learning curve, you know. So it took me like 6 months to like a year to even like start using it regularly. And then, but once I did, like, things started to progress, and I started to feel better about it, and I started putting more stuff out, and yada yada yada, you know.
It's kind of I'm a CS major, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your view. But it's like the Android Studio problem is kind of what I compare it to. It's like there's the program that you start with, which has no functionality, but you can make something with really easy, and it has like 4 buttons, and you learn how to use it really quickly. But then it feels like it's such a rapid jump. Like then whenever you want to do something that your limited functionality thing can't do, it always feels like the next thing is the program with 17 million submenus and like 14 different windows and panels, and everything's in like a different color, and you have to learn all these commands and everything.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And you're like, why does anyone use this?
Yeah. I remember like that was kind of how it was with Photoshop when I first downloaded it, because I don't know, I was using like a crappy like online photo editor for like most of. I still use it actually. Who am I kidding? But like, and then you go to Photoshop, you look at it, and it's just like it's horrifying. It's like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, terrifying.
Indeed.
But that learning curve, I think, is the hardest thing to get over. But I feel like it's the coolest thing. Like the moment you realize, like, oh, I know how to do stuff on this now, you feel like a god. Did you feel like that when you started to master Ableton Live?
It's funny you say that because I don't think I have mastered it. Like, I am definitely at a point where, like, if I showed, like, 14-year-old me, like, how I produce now and, like, what I do, and, like, he'd be like, what, like, you can do that? And I'd be like, yeah. But, like, bounce 5 years in the future, I feel like I'm going to have that same moment, you know? Like, where it's
you
just,
always
like...
want to dunk on your past self.
Of course, you know? And it's kind of the dream. But, like... I learn more and more every day about like production and like how to do it and like how to utilize the software. So, yeah.
So you would consider yourself a music producer rather than a musician? That's usually how you introduce yourself. Is that intentional?
I think it's more. That's just by instinct what I do, like because up until about last year I was just sort of, writing instrumental music and like doing stuff like that instead of really tapping into anything like related to song.
It was at this point our camera cut off filming. Reason unknown. We're back. Sorry, technical difficulties.
It happens.
Do you do this?
I do this?
Yeah.
I might have.
You and your iMovie.
Dude, iMovie.
Did you movie the camera?
I plead the fifth.
Okay, well, before we were cut off, we were talking about music producing, and I think it's really interesting that you don't necessarily say you're like a synthesizer of writing, right? But that's what most of writing is. It's not just the act of words and paper. It's like editing and bringing together different stuff. And you don't say that in most other art, but I assume it's probably similar. A lot of synthesis, a lot of, redoing and bringing things together. But I think it's cool that in music you actually have a word for that, and that's your job title. Cool
Music
job.
Producer. Hell yeah. That's like the, as I was saying before you were rudely interrupted, it's so cool having like complete creative liberty over all of the stuff that you do. Like, you control every aspect of what goes into the production, and like what comes in, what comes out. It's a very cool thing.
Yeah. I would think it would be a little bit intimidating though, just like having like 8 channels and you can do whatever you want in them. I don't know how many channels you usually use. Probably, I'm going to guess more than 8.
A little bit more than 8.
A little bit more than 8.
Yeah, on like, I think the last thing that I finished was 115 channels, something like that. A lot of them are like, I have this weird habit of just creating, like just spamming a channel to just like try to like record something, and then I'll move it off of that and like put it into a channel with like effects on it. That's not really gonna make sense, but it's just like I'll make like a blank channel, move it, but then I'll keep that channel because I just forget to delete it. So it'll really be like probably like 80 active, but still 80.
More than 8.
Tenfold, you know.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than 8.
A little bit more than 8.
Just a bit. That's interesting. I am not a music producer. You may have noticed. But I would say that I'm a creative. I do a lot of writing. This is kind of creative. This is mostly just the fact that I like talking. But I would say that my main creative outlet is writing. And it's different in writing because in music you have a lot of layers going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And in writing, most of like the layers I feel like more unfold throughout whatever I write. Sometimes there's like double meanings and like kind of puns or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess you could say they're layers, but I think it's cool the difference between like something that's more linearly unfolding and something that's sort of multi-dimensionally unfolding.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Multi-dimensionally? Probably.
I don't know if it's
like
used in the way I just used it, but maybe I just coined something.
You might have. You might be a pioneer.
Trademark it.
The heck trademarks the word multi-dimensional.
Nobody else can use it.
Nobody else has ever used that, ever.
And no one will.
No one will. That's dark. That's dystopian. But yeah, I see what you mean, because like there are definitely a lot of moving parts in like just one given like song, and be it like a vocal track or like a guitar track, like those have their own individual layers on top of those like other layers that are being layered into those layers, and it's just like becomes a layer party. And I don't know, like, but the question is like, with writing, like with what you do, like the layers might not necessarily be like apparent like when you're reading it, but like it's more like you're stacking things. Like you're stacking on previous information that the reader gathers from like other stuff, and then like you keep going. So I feel like it's also like it's linear, but there's like an area, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I started writing slightly before I got into speech and debate, but really when I got into speech and debate, I thought a lot more about the act of writing. And what I was writing was speeches, so I thought a lot about how, because people consume speeches extremely differently than the way they consume like written work, because you have the benefit when you're writing something that someone, if they don't understand something, they can go back and reread it. But if I'm like giving a competitive speech, which is what I did in high school, and someone doesn't understand something I said, I'm like, they don't have the chance to come and ask me. So if I want them to understand, you have to kind of say, instead of like filling your time 100%, you fill it 60%, spend the other 30% thinking of nice ways to repeat it so that people remember. So that's part of, and then relating it back to what you were saying with the layers, I feel like a lot of times when I think of a speech, I think of it kind of like a string, and I'm like giving it to my audience and like kind of pulling them into different places and pulling them up and down, but I have to remember where they are and like draw and like tie the string to, I guess, different things, or like different landmarks along the way, so that they can remember and they can kind of find their way through the speech in their mind. So I think in writing, I'm thinking a lot about, in a way that maybe you would be thinking about, what's the listener going to think? I think a lot about what is my audience going to be thinking at this point, what are they going to remember at this point, and what can I do to take the information that I know that they have at this moment that I've told them, which is only going to be some random selection of what I've said, because they're not going to remember everything. what can I give them that I know will build on the information that they have, and I don't even know what information they have. So it's a little bit of a mind game.
Guesswork.
But yeah, there's some craftsmanship in it, I guess, some strategies and things.
There are honestly a lot of parallels to what you just said in like music and stuff, you know? So like with the pulling a string along, it's kind of like if you're trying to tie it to different landmarks, you can't just like in like music, if you halfway through the song just completely end up on like a completely different side of the world, you're gonna lose your audience, you know? So like that kind of, like you kind of have to, like you were saying, tie everything together.
Yeah. I find that it's a lot about balancing like trust and a relationship, and then like showing them something new. So in my speeches, it would be like when part of what I was always thinking about, what is the listener getting out of this? Because I love talking, and it's really easy for me to just start talking and then get lost in the, having fun, just saying my ideas. I think that's how I think, actually. Like, how I think is telling people stuff. This is why I ramble a lot, because I'm figuring out what I'm saying as I'm saying it.
You're saying it, yep.
Yeah. I'm really trying to not just go on a 10-minute ramble right now, because I've thought so much about this topic. But with a speech, I try my best to think about every sentence, what am I giving the audience? And so that can either be building up our trust, and that can be through jokes, that can be through shared experiences, that can be through saying that I understand them, or emotional stuff, and then new information. Like, what can I show you that you haven't thought about, and how can I make you feel like you discovered that? So that's very interesting about writing, and that's sort of how I find my way into a speech, how I start writing it. But how on earth do you start writing a song? Because you can start, for me it looks like you can start anywhere, but I'm sure you have a little bit of a more targeted approach.
Yeah, that's a loaded question, because
asking the hard-hitting questions here.
Oh yeah, dude, this is a crazy podcast. No, but just I think the big thing about how I start music is just I don't even know what I do half the time. A lot of the lyrics that I end up writing first are sort of me just thinking of a melody and then humming it in my head or whatever, humming it out loud, or humming it into a voice memo on my phone. And then I'll put lyrics to that. Or when I'm writing about a specific event, it's more of I'm trying to find the words that I haven't been able to say to people, essentially. If I was having a one-on-one conversation with my friend and I'm talking about this and I'm trying to figure out I'm trying to talk through the problem or whatever I was going through at the time, you kind of get to the point where you just kind of hit a wall and you can't really say anything more without repeating yourself or without sounding just not really sounding nothing gets done. And with music, that's where you can kind of take a sort of different spin on it. Something eventually builds up, enough emotion is written into it that you can write a song about it. There's been a lot of stuff in my personal life that I have definitely mulled over for far too long, and it leads to me just kind of having to sit down and realize I could probably do a little bit more personal therapy if I try to put this to a musical thing, a musical environment. And with my even with my latest thing that I had just put out, when I was first writing
Name drop it.
Name drop it?
Name drop it.
Offense Mechanism by defsharp on Spotify.
Now.
Stream it right now. It's awesome. That's awesome. No, but you just the events of what I was writing about that song were essentially things that had happened in summer last year, or even as far back as 2020, or in October, pretty recent maybe. I don't know. It's just kind of it's things that build up, and it just kind of sits in the back of your mind, and once you're ready to sort of feel it out, you can kind of put it to music. And the other thing is how that song started was just me, like, I think I was playing a guitar riff one day in like a call with some of my friends on like Discord or whatever, and I was like, oh, this is nice. And then I fiddled around with it. I ended up like adding other layers, like, you know, the guitar riffs ended up adding like I don't know, like a lower bass line or like a chord progression or something like that, and then just kind of stacking things on, and then you sort of hear what vibe is being created by all those instruments coming together, and you're like, I think I know what to write about. At least for me. Like, it's sort of like I build a song mainly by like what I'm feeling when I'm first writing, like the instrumental stuff. Mm-hmm. At least for what I've noticed is like that's like the best like way of making stuff for me. Like, if I try to like write lyrics first and then put music to it, it's a little hard. But when I get into like a groove, or like if I get into like a rhythm of a song before I get into like the actual like meat potatoes of like what the lyrics are going to be about, it's sort of like it's a little bit easier and it flows a little bit more because the feeling is there and the lyrics kind of come after.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of makes sense because for me, whenever I think about what you do, which is every time it blows my mind, it's crazy. It's just wild. Like, part of it's me being impressed, but part of it is me just being confused. It's like, how do you do what you do? But like the idea of having like words and then being able to somehow translate that into like a guitar and a drum and all of that makes no sense to me. So I guess it's interesting to see that you kind of do it the other way. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe speaks to, you were kind of sort of saying along the lines of, you process your emotions when language fails, when you can't process it just on your own, you go to music, and then what you create sort of somehow maybe subconsciously, or maybe what you create, you just have such a grasp on music, will reflect some certain emotion that you can then identify more clearly through the music than even through words, maybe?
Oh yeah. Like, I released with a label whose little like tagline was, when words fail, music speaks, right? And as corny as that sounds, it definitely has a pretty large veil of truth to it, you know? Like, of course, maybe the label wasn't the greatest representation of that because it was just like an electronic dubstep thing. But even then, like, for me, I find that people like expressing themselves through electronic music can be like an even cooler feat, you know? Being able to convey emotions through purely sounds that they make instead of like lyrics or like whatever. Like, it's synthesizing how you feel. And even with like that one label that, you know, had just pumped out electronic stuff, like that is really cool. And since I kind of grew up being the sort of electronic producer, I know how it feels to like try to convey emotion through like a medium where you can't say anything, you know? You have to use the music. And a lot of the stuff on there, albeit like dance music-y or like, you know, that kind of stuff, there's definitely a lot of like charged and targeted emotion with what they were writing about or what they were feeling at the time, you know? And a listener, like probably like half the kids at like a university like MIT would hear like wah, wah, and be like, that's some bull crud. That's bull crud. But like a lot of other people can find meaning and connect to that in ways that other people don't. And I think that's where the whole like where music where words fail.
Did your words just fail?
My words just fail. But music can speak to that, you know.
I'll say one more thing about this, and then I have another question for you.
Sure.
But it's interesting that you're talking about when words fail. For me, the way that I've always expressed emotion is through words, but specifically, it's not through. I say that my creative outlet is writing, but it actually kind of is a little bit not that. When I was a kid, I used to, whenever I was like in the shower, or in my bedroom, or alone or whatever, I don't know why I started doing this, but my mind would just be like, it would put me in the chair, in like, you know, the chair across from Stephen Colbert, or across from Jimmy Fallon, and I would just in my mind suddenly be there, and Stephen Colbert would be asking me a question, and literally aloud I would be answering it. I don't know why I don't know why I started doing this. It was me talking to myself. Maybe I'm crazy.
Maybe you're schizophrenic.
Maybe that could be possible.
That's okay, but
either way, I was interviewing myself, I guess, because Stephen Colbert was not there. I know this.
Was it Stephen Colbert in your head?
It was
that you were talking to?
It was Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon. Those two.
Okay.
Alternated. Sometimes it would be like you're at like a tech conference or you're at this place, but it was mostly those two. And so I would be talking aloud, and a lot of the time I'd be like, dang, I sound a lot smarter when I'm talking than when I'm writing. And eventually I figured out I can just talk and then write down what I say. So when I was doing like college essays, and I was stuck on something, I'd be talking to my mom about it, and I'd be like, I don't know, I just want to say da-da-da-da-da, and she'd be like, write that down, that's better than what you wrote. And then eventually I started just using a voice memo to record myself, and I would just talk to myself, or I would talk to someone else, and then I would write down whatever I had said. So for me, the way that I've always been able to communicate has been through conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I started this podcast.
Maybe. Because it's a lot easier to, flesh it out. Yeah.
I always feel like I realize what I truly think when I'm talking to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have a different question. Going somewhere else.
Okay.
So, as a writer, I find that I have a lot of these weird, like, rules that are not actual grammatical rules or not actual, like, writing rules, but that I can't stand it if I write, like, something in a certain way, little idiosyncrasies. And I wonder if you have any of those musically. I can give you an example if, I can't use, if I use, like, a word like a noun, like a proper noun or a verb in one sentence, I can't use it in the next sentence. So if I say, she bounced over the room, there was a bounce in his step as he walked. I can't say bounce twice or bouncing twice. So do you have any, like, idiosyncrasies like that? And why do you think you have them?
It's a fun question. Because, like, I don't know. Like, a lot of the stuff that I end up writing is... It's not really in the form of a, like, pop song, I guess, which is kind of the textbook definition of, like, a song being an idiosyncrasy. Like, it's like, you repeat the stuff over and over again, you do the stuff, and then there's a certain section where it's different, and then it's the stuff again. I don't know, like, that's how I'd phrase it, like, A, B, A, B, C, A, B, whatever. Like, that kind of thing. But it's like, I don't really tend to, like, do that a lot. So I guess I don't necessarily really enjoy repeating myself in that sort of, like, in, like, a musical context.
So you don't like...
I like the
verse
evolution.
schemes?
The evolution of it, I think, is a little bit, like, cooler to me. Sometimes, it's like, I'll give it some leeway because, music is definitely supposed to have, like, a motif and, like, a sort of like energy throughout that is consistent. And without that, it's just like, if you're trying to do too many different things at the same time, like, it's going to sound kind of dumb. But, like, if you keep within, like, a certain idea or, like, certain, like, vein, like, you'll find, like, a flow that's not too repetitive, but also, like, just repetitive enough to keep people, like, wanting to, like, listen to the next thing.
So would you say it's more of, like, a feel thing where you can sort of sense when your music sounds like you or when it sounds correct to you? Or is it more gradual than that? Is it not even like there isn't a correct, there's just a closer and a further to the feeling?
I think it's the latter. Like, it's just sort of like, the feeling within a song is always going to be consistent, at least, mostly. Sometimes the changing of a feeling is like a big, like, part of a song, Like, I have a thing that I was writing in December about dissociation. Just, like, has no words. It's just sort of like me fiddling around on the guitar, and then something changes, and then something changes again, and then it gradually becomes this, like, very large sounding, like, distorted thing. And that change of feeling while gradual and still stays within the confines of like the song, is like a big part of like that vibe. So although necessarily like the feeling changes, it's still a consistency and a build towards something, I guess. And I guess I don't really like when my music tries to like not have like the evolution type thing.
Interesting. I think that that's something that is very related to the medium. And the way I'll describe it, based on hearing you talk about it, is that music is continuous, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not that you have like a little bit of music and then a pause and then a little bit of music. It's not like in discrete increments. But writing or speech or whatever is, I think, to me, it would be syllables. Not even words, just syllables. Everything's broken up into that. So for me, there's a lot more rules or idiosyncrasies about, I want a certain sentence to have this many, like, it only sounds right if it has a certain amount of syllables, or if the syllables are a certain way, or if the words are a certain way, or I don't want to repeat too many, like, of these little discrete increments. You only have however many English words there are, and however many syllables are in them to play with, and they're all, like, sort of discrete. I mean, you can say them slower or faster, but they're still, like, little pieces. But with music, it's gradual, and so maybe because of that, there's more of a graduality in getting closer to being right, or closer to being wrong, or closer to being what you want it to be, rather.
Yeah.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Fascinating. Truly fascinating.
I'm trying to psychoanalyze you right now. I'm staring into your eyes, and I'm going to mind read you right now. Are you ready?
What am I thinking about?
Dude.
Dude. How'd you know?
I always know.
That was crazy.
I know everything.
How'd you know?
I know.
It's fucked.
Oh my god. It's okay. This is not a censored podcast. Don't worry about it. We want natural conversation, because only through natural conversation can I figure out what I'm thinking about.
I know that.
Yeah.
I think I sort of strayed away from the idiosyncrasy question because I wasn't really sure if there was like a certain musical thing that I could compare that to, but I hope that my answer.
It was interesting.
Interesting.
It really doesn't matter if you answer the question as long as you say something
As
interesting.
long as I'm speaking.
As long as you're speaking. You have to be speaking every second of this podcast.
Okay.
Say a word, say a word, say a
I'm
word.
saying words right now, like at least a couple words. I sound like, like on iPhone, like there's like you just spam the middle button and just kind of say a bunch of words. That's how I
words
feel.
Words are discrete.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of like a continuous, like I don't really know what I'm saying, but like it's almost grammatically correct.
I think what you're saying is very interesting.
Mm.
I would have told you
if it was
wasn't.
dumb. Yeah.
I would hope so. But I would have told you after. So maybe.
Maybe in like 20 minutes you'll be like, that was so stupid. You're dumb, and I hate you, and then you're gonna send me home.
I won't say I hate you. I will send you home because your flight leaves tomorrow.
I do. I leave tomorrow at 7 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
How's your time been in Boston? Changing the subject completely.
It's been fun. It's been really cool. Like, I enjoy being everywhere but Washington, which is something that I've kind of been, wow, that's interesting. But, like, Boston has been an interesting and fun time. Like, I've been staying at my friend's house, who, no shade to the man, but not necessarily the cleanest environment, which, I mean, that's fine. I was really not there for too long. I'm just kind of there to sleep and dip.
Discomfort breeds good art.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like, other than like the slight little bit of trouble that I had in terms of housing, everything else has been really cool. Like Boston is a beautiful city. It's chock full of like really cool like architecture, and like, I don't know, it's so easy to get around. It's fun to walk around in. Like things are much closer than I thought they were. Like the fact that I could walk from here to Harvard in like 45 minutes, like I never really was able to understand that, I guess. Like I thought Harvard was like in a completely different area. Like I thought we'd have to drive a little bit, not like walk up Mass Ave and just get there. Like that's just kind of like a mind-bending thing coming from like, like I was just in LA for a little while.
Can't walk places in LA.
Cannot walk places for crud in LA. It's just like
amazing food, terrible traffic.
Terrible traffic, terrible road, terrible city. No, I'm just kidding. It's awesome. I love LA. LA
We
is
ate a lot of
definitely
good
like
food in LA.
we had a lot of good food.
It was great.
Yeah.
Well, I also think, you know what I think it is? We grew up in the Seattle area.
Seattle.
And one of the things about the Seattle area is there are hills.
There are.
And
a lot
that
of
makes
hills.
walking places terrible.
Hell.
There's also, and you may not have noticed this, rain.
I didn't notice.
Yeah. Well, you know, there is some rain there.
There was someone.
So rain plus hills means I don't think anyone walks anywhere in Washington.
No, it's like, don't. Why would you do this to
Don't,
yourself?
yeah, don't do that.
But it's like,
Washington's great. We
Yeah.
love Washington.
huh, sure, okay.
A plus.
Yeah.
Not a walkable,
B.
not really a walkable city.
No, absolutely. Seattle is not walkable. And like, even like UW is
Mhm.
less pleasant to walk around in than just like this area.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I might be a little biased because I'm just not the hugest UW fan. Because I'm not.
Go Huskies.
Go Huskies. Hold on. Scoducks. No, I don't know. Like, it's just sort of. I like being away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really nice. That's the coolest part about Boston, just being able to walk places.
Mhm.
Like, I got like a good, like, at least 10K steps a day, up to
Yeah.
like 20K, so
Mm-hmm.
can't complain there, you know?
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really nice. I like it here.
I like it here too.
Yeah. You
I
should
could,
move here.
I could so see myself here.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Then you'll be on
Probably.
the podcast every week.
That would be problematic. Could I become like a regular?
You could.
Like I'll just be like on
Well,
the
we'll
couch.
see how this episode does.
I'll be the sound effects person.
You know, if this episode like ups our subscriber count, you can be a regular.
I'm gonna promote it.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
We're gonna get famous. You're
Yeah.
already famous.
Dude,
This
I
is-
made the intro music.
Dude.
Dude.
Dude. At least twice.
At least twice, yeah.
Will we
Probably get
do it
three.
again? Probably. Anyways, but yeah, it's been so cool as your friend. Are we friends? We're friends.
I'd say we're friends.
We're
I
besties.
think
Yeah,
we're besties. Yeah.
we're besties. But as your friend, it's been cool being your friend and then seeing your music. I feel like sometimes I have the inside scoop on things.
Sometimes. Mhm. You don't really know what's going on in my head.
I don't know what's going on in your head.
Or do you? You did just mind reading.
I did do that, but it's been cool to talk to you about things that happen in your life, and then to listen to a song and see, even if it's not directly about that, to see some of the emotion come through.
Mhm.
For example, and this I think relates to a lot to writing, you wrote a song that's about, this might be a scoop, about our friend group.
Did I?
Did you?
I did. I
You
did do that.
And I, around a similar time, I wrote 5, was it 5? Some amount of works about our friend group, like written works.
Yeah.
And we both wrote them around the same time, and they were in very different mediums. And I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like, because you read mine and I listened to yours, so what did you think about my written works and what they express compared to yours? And then I'll say what I thought about your song.
I think the coolest part to me was just kind of being able to see two completely different perspectives on like the same group of people,
Mm-hmm.
but like through different eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was able to see like your opinions and like thoughts on the same group of friends that like, you know, I had spent a lot of time with as well. And just seeing like the differences, the similarities, the sort of like maybe like there were definitely a lot of things that you could tell that like they definitely the same ideas were there,
Mhm.
but sometimes they were completely different.
Yeah.
For
There were
different people.
themes.
There were themes,
And
but there were also
motifs.
different things.
Yeah.
You know? So I think your writing was very much it was very sweet and like emotionally targeted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the difference between the song and the writing was just that mine, although like I'd say it was pretty emotionally targeted, it was more like there was less thought put into it, maybe.
I think yours was more a reflection of your internal view, and mine was more, I wrote those things almost as like not even, but like they were supposed to be like almost letters, right?
They were extremely thoughtful.
Yeah, they were letters, and they were me to the other person. But you were more reflecting on you and how you felt about the person. It was like you looking back and looking in a mirror and thinking about the different people. I also think the interesting thing is neither of us put names. And everyone, I think, immediately knew what every part of everything was about.
Yeah, for sure.
We know each other too well.
I think, yeah, like, and the funniest part from what I think I was actually telling you this either earlier today or yesterday, it was seeing the responses from other people about the song. Like, the fact that people could really resonate with that sort of, like, friendship and, like, sort of, in some ways, romantic theme throughout some of the verses, in a way. Not maybe like what's the word? Not it's like platonic romanticism, which isn't really romantic,
romanticizing
but it's
friendships.
Yes, exactly. So it's like you hear that, and a lot of people kind of just resonate with like little parts of that, and I think a lot of people think it's about one person, which to me is ridiculous. Like that's really cool that people can like draw
fans
different
are stupid.
like not stupid.
I'm kidding.
Just like it's just like, can you really connect the dots if you don't have full context?
Yeah.
Like in something like that, like when a lot of the themes are very much like, I wish I knew you better, or I knew you like in some ways too much, like it's just kind of like the differences and just like maybe the internal like dialogue and sort of fight, the inner mental fight of just about who you are to your friends and who your friends are to you.
Yeah. I think the other thing that you did that I didn't do as much, I was more writing it to be, these are all the wonderful things I think about you, but not necessarily this is what I feel when I think about our friendship. And I think you explored a lot of, our friend group is a great friend group. We're also human beings, human people.
True. That's real.
And so you explored not only the amazing parts of our friend group and the wonderful romantic parts of it, but also, romance is partially pain. So like envy and bitterness and regret and comparison, a lot of themes of that. And we were talking about today.
Shout out verse 3. Sorry. I had to say that.
Shout out, we're not going to say the name of this person.
We don't talk about verse 3.
We don't talk.
No.
But you were saying today that you were thinking about maybe even doing another version of it, a rewrite, or an extended version. And I was thinking about if I rewrote my writing, I would probably definitely take a lot of influence from what you wrote and write more about the complicated emotions. Because I think that's really interesting to explore the complications of a friendship.
Yeah. Because, like, the funny part about that song is, like, I'd say that I probably held back a little bit on a lot of the things that I could have said about those people in terms of, like, either truly, like, things that I would never say or, like, things that I want to say. I don't know. Because, like, the thing about Selective Morality, which is the song that we're talking about, I don't think we name dropped it yet.
Name drop.
But, yeah, that was... The thing about it is, like, I don't think I could ever... in like a normal conversation, in anything in those verses, say that to their face. Like, I don't think I could really like even if I was like, drunk out of my mind, real talk comes out, I don't really think that I could like express those emotions, which I kind of buried very deep inside me, like a lot of those things for a very long time, and just like just say that to them plainly, a lot of those people. So it's a very interesting like thing. Yeah.
Where words fail,
music speaks. I don't know. It's just like, it was easier to do it that way. And there, like I said, there's more I could say, probably.
It's about to be Selective Morality extended version diss track.
Evil version.
Just destroy all of us.
Evil, mean version. No, I don't know.
So yeah, one of the verses is about me.
It is.
Yeah.
Would you like
My
to talk
voice
about
is in
that?
it.
Your voice is in it.
Not my singing. Sad. Next time.
Maybe next time. Yeah.
Maybe next time, but I'll let the listeners guess what I say, and whatever they're about to guess is definitely going to be wrong. If you haven't listened to it, that is.
Yeah,
But,
that's true.
yeah, and my written works will never be found.
Mm,
They exist. They're on the internet. They will never be found.
I found them.
You found them, but that's because I showed them.
You sent them to me.
I did.
Yes.
Does it count as finding?
No.
No. We'll say you found them. Yeah.
I did, sure.
Sure.
I do know your Wattpad name, though. Oh. You
Now-
can
now
bleep.
they
You can
know it's on
censor that.
Wattpad.
You can censor that.
Okay. I could.
You should.
Will I?
Yes.
Find out next week. But I think we're going to call it there. Thank you so much for listening, and this has been On the Dome. Yeah? That was good. I think that was good.